Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Jai Ho. And thank you so much for all the love that you have given to every episode of Jai Ho. And I'm sure that after watching every episode, you must be feeling even more respect and much more love for Bharat. After listening to all our wonderful speakers, each one of whom has been an expert in their own field, today we bring to you the perspective of a Frenchman. Yes, an eminent journalist and award-winning author who fell so much in love with Bharat that he decided to make Bharat his homeland. And not only that, he founded FACT, which is the foundation for the advancement of cultural ties to tell the real history of India. And through that, he founded in 2012 the Chattrapati Shivaji Maharaj Museum in Pune, which is a sight for the eyes. And he has been one of the most vocal voices of Dharma and about Hindutva, and somebody who takes real pride in Bharat. So without any further delay, let us speak with the man himself, François Gautier.
My name is François Gautier. I have the privilege to live in your country for a long time. I say privilege because many Indians feel that, they want to go abroad, they want to emigrate. But I'm a guy who came here and is happy to be here.
You keep letting your media attack you all the time. I'm a militant Frenchman, so it revolts me. Every day, if you read the Indian papers, you get depressed. I ban newspaper from my house.
For the first time, I felt that the moment of Hindu power has come. When yesterday we all felt that, the time for the renaissance of India that we've been expecting for a long time has finally arrived.
I have a foundation called FACT, Foundation Against Continuing Terrorism. And FACT was started because I saw the exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits. I saw the Kashmiri Hindus being chased of their ancestral homes and lands, for no faults except being Hindu. So at that time, I thought I should do something for these Kashmiri Pandits.
Which is today only alive in India. The knowledge of who am I, why am I born again and again, what happens when I die, what is Dharma, what is Karma, how God manifests himself or herself at different times under different names. This knowledge used to be everywhere in the world. And all of them fought against that knowledge.
Namaste. What an honor and what a pleasure to have with us François Gautier. And it is really, and I consider it my some kind of luck that we have your perspective at a time when there is this global kind of an attack on Hindutva, when you have some events happening that you call as global dismantling of Hindutva. So I think that everybody wants to know your views, and it is really such an honor. And I think that if it was in non-corona times, we would have been able to have a face-to-face interview. But at least we are fortunate enough to have your views virtually. So without any further delay, please could you tell us what exactly is this fear of Hindutva? Why are people so eager to dismantle Hindutva? And what is this term Hinduphobia for real? And what exactly is your view about it as somebody who was not born in India, but who feels for India, who feels for Bharat?
Yeah, firstly, it's an honor for me to be in India. Whatever I have learned it in your country. So it is not that I'm doing a favor by defending Hindutva and Hindus and India. Actually, I'm repaying a favor because I have lived in India for so many years and India has given me everything. Spirituality first. When I came to India, very young, I met the mother of Pondicherry, who was Sri Aurobindo companion. I have met so many extraordinary people in India, from great yogis to simple people in the villages when I was doing features. I am married to an Indian for 30 years and happily married. And so India has given me everything. Even professionally, to write about India, to books and articles, is extremely interesting because India is such a diverse, such a vast country of great interest. Now, about Hinduphobia. No, I'm a disciple of Sri Aurobindo. When I first came, as I said, I first came to India. I met the mother of Pondicherry, who was Sri Aurobindo's companion, and I started reading Sri Aurobindo. Although now, my wife and I are teachers of Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's techniques, and we're very grateful to him for what he has given us. But I started with Sri Aurobindo, and Sri Aurobindo insists on the occult, on the invisible forces. Now, my first belief about Hinduphobia is that why are Hindus attacked? Because they hold a sacred knowledge. If you're a nobody, if you're an uninteresting person, not only you're not outwardly attacked, but also occultly attacked. Now, Hindus are occultly attacked because they are, the last holder of that knowledge. As I said before in that very good video that you made, which I discovered in India when I came. Why life? What is death? What is karma? Why am I reborn again and again? What is God? He or she? What is the Shakti? So many things I've discovered in India that I'm writing about, but not because I'm a knower, just because I read about them and I experienced them in India. So Hindus are attacked today because they're worthy to be attacked. That is the first aspect, that there is an invisible, unconscious urge among the attackers of the Hindu, whether it is the Marxist, the Muslim, the Christian conversions, the Western nation, the Indologists. They are attacking something which they feel is threatening to them. Otherwise, why should they attack Hindus? If Hindus are nobodies, and if their civilization has been wiped out, like it happened in Egypt or in Greece and so many other countries, genuine civilization, ancient civilization were wiped out either by Christianity in South America or by Islam, in Africa and Asia. So Hinduism held its ground. Although there was a tremendous, in my museum, I have a Hindu Holocaust exhibition, because the greatest Holocaust ever is, of course, that of the Hindus, from the Hindu Kush till Mumbai 2011, the greatest Holocaust ever. But Hindus are attacked by different types of people, by so many people. You have to include the Chinese also, because the Chinese are probably at the moment India's greatest enemies on land, on sea, in Kashmir, in Ladakh, with the coronavirus, everything. So Hindus are attacked because they are worthy of attack. That is the first aspect, that there are occult forces. In India, you call them Asuric forces. There are Asuric forces who are using people, whether it's the Marxists, the Muslims, the Christians, the Indologists. They're using these people who are puppets. They don't understand why they're attacking Hindus. Most of these people don't understand. They're just, someone is pulling the strings. So there are puppets of invisible forces, Asuric forces, which want to destroy the last knowledge, this very precious knowledge which the world needs to survive and which the world has forgotten. Christians are, I am a born Catholic, educated Catholic. My uncle was a priest, parish priest. My father was a, very, very fervent Catholic. But Catholicism and Christianity said, okay, you die and then you go either to heaven or to purgatory or to hell. And then it's over. So what is the point of living life? When I was a youngster, I was asking myself the question, what is the point if you have one life? And the Muslims think that if you kill, if you blow yourself up in the name of Allah, you will enjoy heaven and so many young girls, which is also very simplistic. Oh, there is a knowledge in this country which Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. There is God in you, there's a spark of God in you, and this is reborn again in the body, again and again. The body dies, and he tells Arjuna, you can kill these people, they're already dead. You can kill them because the soul is eternal and it is born and again. So this knowledge should be called the Bible of humanity. So Hinduphobia is because, firstly, because Hindus hold that very ancient, very precious knowledge which the world has forgotten. So they're the target of occult Asuric forces. Very few people understand that, but I think it's very important to understand. Now, the second aspect is, I'm a defender of Hindus, of course, I have fought against Hinduphobia, and we're going to extrapolate on what is Hinduphobia in practice. But actually, I also say that Hindus are 1.2 billion in the world, one of the most educated, one of the most forward, law-abiding communities. We see wherever Hindus have gone, whether they went as indentured laborers in Mauritius or Tahiti, or whether they went as engineers in UK or doctors, they've done well. Everywhere Hindus have gone, they've done well. Their children have top universities. They don't break law. They don't riot. They pay their taxes, not like in India, but they pay the taxes abroad. And they're one of the most enlightened communities compared to the Jews, who have a huge lobby all over the world, including the United States. Hindus are 1.2 billion. I mean, they're the largest educated community in the world, but they're a very disunited community. So they're easy to attack. These Asuric forces are attacking Hindus also because they're very disunited. If you go to the US, and I have been many times to the US, I find that every community is divided. Marathis against Kannada, and doctors against engineers, and Muslims against Hindus, and Christians against Hindus. This so-called South Asia is just rubbish. So Hindus, a very powerful, very educated, very rich community, is hopelessly divided. Even in India, we see that the Hindu vote is so easy to divide. Mamata Banerjee showed it in West Bengal, really, that you can divide the Hindu vote very easily. Dalits, you just talk about Dalits and pitch Dalits against Brahmins. Though it is, I know because I have made research on Dalits and Brahmins, and actually Brahmins are the new Dalits of today. They're a very impoverished community. So you can divide in India, you can divide the Hindus. So Hindus are divided. That's the second aspect. The third aspect, of course, is that Hindus are facing a powerful enemy, multiple enemy. We talked about China, but I have harped a lot about Western Indologists, because this conference in the US, Dismantling Global Hinduism, is a brainchild of a Frenchman called Christophe Jaffrelot, who was a leading Indologist in France and my personal enemy. He's been my personal enemy for 30 years. But he's sponsored by the French government. There's an institute in France called CNRS, which means Center of National Scientific Research, which is sponsored by the government. And inside that CNRS, there are different cells dealing with South Asia and with India. And Christophe Jaffrelot is the leading of these 2-3 cells. So he's sponsored by the French government. He's a very powerful man. And every time something happens in India, newspapers and televisions call him. So he writes articles, he writes about caste, he writes about Hinduism. He's written many books showing the evil role of NRIs, of Hindus in the United States, UK, Canada, etc., who are funding the BJP and Modi, because of course for him, Mr. Modi and the BJP are the ultimate enemies, though Hindus are. So this man has devoted his life, and he's a very learned person. He's quite young. When he talks very well, and talks in a very reasonable and academic manner. But he's devoted his entire life to demolish Hindus and what he calls Hinduism. Again, some force is using him. It's not that Christophe Jaffrelot has decided very young that Hindus are enemies. It's just some force which is pulling the strings. But there are many Christophe Jaffrelot in the world. In America, you have Audrey Truchke, who praises Aurangzeb to heaven, and people like Witzel, who was a Sanskritist. It was started by the British, actually. The British were the ones who started Indology, because the British discovered that there was some interest in India. Sanskrit was an interesting language, very ancient. The idea of the temples, the ancient days of the temples, the puja. So the British were not completely stupid. They understood there was something more than what they thought before in India. So they started Indology. People like Max Muller and before Mortimer Wheeler, they were Christians. Max Muller was a hero in India. There are so many institutes and streets named after him. Wrote a letter to his wife saying, I'm a Sanskritist and I'm an Indologist, but my first belief is Jesus Christ. whoever doesn't believe in Jesus Christ is someone who is ignorant and need to be converted. So these people, the Jaffalos and the Widdle, they continue again unconsciously. Again, someone is pulling their strings. They continue the British tradition of taking an academic interest in India, but at the same time remaining on top of their superiority complex, whether it is unconscious or conscious. I've seen it also with the Western correspondents in Delhi, because I have spent a lot of time in Delhi and I still do, and I'm in touch with many Western correspondents. They might be good people, but there is most of the time, 98% of the time, a feeling of my civilization, my democracy, my religion is superior to India. I may be friendly with Indians, but I do think unconsciously that they adore fake gods, they millions of gods, and they have this caste system, they have this poverty. So I am superior to India. So hence the hostile coverage that India gets. Now, the third aspect of Hinduphobia is how to fight it. So I'm fighting it, but I'm a Frenchman. I'm a militant Frenchman. I'm fighting it, but I find it's a lonely battle because people like you are a minority. You're a minority. When I go to the US and I speak in universities, there are thousands and thousands of Indian students. Every dream of every Indian parent, middle class, upper class, is to send their children to universities, American universities. Every dream, and still today, it saddens me. I did the opposite. I came here and I queued to Indian consulates to come here, but most Indians queue in Delhi, American consulate. They're treated like sheep. They're treated like trash. So it breaks my heart to see that, when actually I've always envisioned that Westerners will come to India to learn from that knowledge, like they did in the 60s. Of course, it was a hippie movement. There was some distortion, but still, people came because they knew there was some knowledge in India. And so they came here consciously or unconsciously. They knew that they would get some answers in India, and they did. Even great people like Steve Jobs, and they came to India because there was some knowledge here. So every parent's dream in India is to send their children to American university. So I've given a lecture in Atlanta University, where there are at least 3,000 students. I gave a lecture on the need to write Indian history. Out of 3,000 Indian students with good publicity, 9 turned up, 11 turned up. Oh, I don't know what to say. What the British have done and what Mr. Nehru did by adopting the British education system in 1947 has bred a nation of clones, which are good for export. Again, I'm saying you're a minority. I'm a minority. Okay, but I'm a Frenchman, so I get along. But Hindus like you are a minority. The 2-3%, 1-2-3% maximum of the majority of Hindu population, which is very selfish. So to fight Hinduphobia, the first thing is that Hindus should get united. The second thing is that they need to come out of their comfort zone. I mean, even something like this is good, but unless Hindus are willing to go down in the street, unless Hindus in United States, in India, in UK are willing to come down the street, I'm not saying need to come down and burn things like the Muslims do, but need to come down the street physically and protest physically, and maybe use Mahatma Gandhi's tools of dharna, of sitting in front of Audrey Truschke's house, or of that New York Times journalist who did a very hostile and true article. Unless they're willing to come out of the corner and do that, I don't see the end of Hinduphobia, because Hinduphobia will continue, because Hindus still have that knowledge, in spite of so many invasions and so much Holocaust and so much hostility today, in spite of China. That knowledge is still there today in India. At every village there is some sadhu, there is some simple people who have that knowledge that God is many and He manifests different times under different names, and I am born again and again, and so that knowledge is still there. So Hinduphobia will continue unless Hindus rise.
So, do you think that this may have risen out of some kind of an insecurity or some kind of a fear in the minds of these, as you say, Abrahamic religions, that Hindus, or this Hinduism, that may be rising, and that is why especially we see so many universities having been involved in this so-called kind of a venture that they are trying to dismantle Hindutva? Because we had never heard of something called as Hinduphobia. That was something unknown. So are they trying to create Hinduphobia? Is this because this is something that in none of my trips to any other country have I heard of people fearing Hindus creating some kind of terror. So this is something new that we are hearing.
No, it's absolute crap, of course. The comparison between the RSS and the Taliban is so outrageous that anybody who has some knowledge about India would laugh or would dismiss it. But unfortunately, it won't. Westerners are ignorant. In my country, in France, people are goodwilling. The ordinary Frenchmen have goodwill towards India. But when someone who scientifically tells them that Hindus are very dangerous, how can they know the truth? What parameters do they have to know that Hindus are not Taliban? Unless they know a little bit of Indian history and they know that every persecuted minority in the world found refuge in India, including the Jews who were never persecuted. But they don't know that. I know it because I live in India and I have studied, but they don't know that. So the ignorance and the innocence of Westerners is something that these enemies of India are using. And of course, the problem of Indians themselves, as I said, they're clones. They're brilliant clones, but they're clones. The British created clones. Of course, you know the story of Macaulay, who thought that unless we create generation after generation of Indians who are brown in skin but think English and act English, we will never fully own India. And he was right. And I think I'm writing now a biography of Indira Gandhi, and of course I have to deal with a grandfather and a father. They were totally westernized people. They had got their suits made in London. They had they went to study in England. They came back with socialist ideas. They were totally westernized. There were very little Indianness in them. So these people in the West, in universities, Indians who spit on India and are used by Indologists to say, look, Indians themselves are saying it, they're traitors. They should be dealt with. I mean, of course, as you said, I'm a militant Frenchman. I think they should be taken care of, not killed, but they should be tackled. There are many ways to tackle these people. You confront them. Hindus are young, handsome, intelligent. They speak English. There are some beautiful girls in America. Anybody who's even accused of improper conduct towards a girl, even if it's just an accusation, is finished. So I don't think Hindus are thinking properly, because again there are Gandhian non-violent ways to tackle these people, but it's not happened. Once I gave a lecture to the HSS, which is the RSS equivalent in the US, and they asked me, that was 20 years ago, they asked me what to do. I said, you have to go down the street, you have to confront these people, you have to create an army of Hindu youths who are very educated, American-born, speak American like the Americans, but Hindu at heart, make them swear on the Bhagavad Gita, and create small cells that will confront these people, that will take action like an army. Of course, it never happened. The RSS is Taliban, but they're scared to come out of their brown pants, their brown shorts. I mean, only the divine grace. There has always been a divine grace on India, which saved India and preserved that knowledge. So only the divine grace can save Hindus, I think, today.
No, it is such a pleasant surprise to most Indians when they hear that, a Frenchman taking so much pride, and you are much more proud about Bharat and a lot of Bharatiya culture than most Indians themselves. So this actually creates a kind of a curiosity as to how, what actually caused you to fall so much in love with Bharat that you actually accepted or you adopted Bharat as your homeland. So what exactly caused it?
No, again, it's either you call it accident or fate. I was a very young man. I was unhappy. I wanted to see the world. And I had a friend, my best friend, whose father was the last governor of Pondicherry. So my friend told me at that time where I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave Europe, go around the world. And learn something and become someone, a man. So at that time, my friend told me there's a caravan of cars driving from Paris to Pondicherry to start a place called Auroville, which is founded on the idols of someone called Sri Aurobindo. And of course, I didn't know anything about India. I had the same cliches that most Westerners have today still about India, poverty and fakir. I read Tantan, so Kipling, but I didn't know Sri Aurobindo. I was not interested in the spirituality, so I had a mystical side in me. But I thought it's a good way to start my world tour. From Paris, drive with 5 cars to India, and then from there, I will proceed to Southeast Asia, Japan, America, and come back after 1 year. So I told my parents, and they agreed. I left with this caravan of cars, and so again, fate or accident, we reached Delhi from Lahore. From Lahore, you drive to Delhi in a night, because we used to drive by night so that the cars wouldn't overheat. So in one night from Lahore, we drove to Delhi, and I spent my first evening in Delhi in the Sri Aurobindo ashram. I don't know if you know, today it's called the Mother School, but those days it was a very pretty place, still half in the countryside. And I had never read Sri Aurobindo, but I just climbed on one of the vans, opened a book of Sri Aurobindo called The Life Divine, and I read 3 lines, and I had one very strong spiritual experience that I had come home, and there was a very precious knowledge here, which I would defend all my life. Also, in those moments, I was 19. In those few seconds, I had an intuition, or spiritual intuition, that I had come home. So then we drove from Delhi to Pondicherry, and I met the mother, who was an extraordinary yogini. And I started reading Sri Aurobindo, and I lived for 8 years in the Sri Aurobindo ashram of Pondicherry. And then the mother passed away, and when the guru dies, it's a difficult moment. You don't know what to do. So I started freelancing. I had a little bit of writing and photography when I was in Paris for a local newspaper. So I started freelancing. And then I discovered India on the ground, because theoretical knowledge is good, but it's never enough. The problem with Indologists is that most of the knowledge is in the mind, about caste or about temples or even about Sanskrit. So when I started, I had read Sri Aurobindo extensively. When I started going in the ground and meeting people and having experience, then I gathered that knowledge which I have today. From Kanyakumari, I started actually doing feature in Kerala on Kalaripayat, which is a very ancient martial art, and how it went to Japan and China and became different martial arts. Then I met the local people, and I was extremely touched by these people, because they were doing seva. They were teaching the children of villages. In those days, it was still in the villages, this martial art, the Karipayat. I was extremely touched by their, because in the West, we think, oh, I have to be good, I have to do charity, I have to do some seva. But here, I found that these Indians, they had it in the genes. The tolerance, the seva spirit, they had it. And still today, it is true, I think. So, and then I became a political journalist slowly, because politics is life. And I covered Kashmir, and Kashmir opened my eyes. Actually, I'm here today because of Kashmir. I defend Hindutva because I saw the Kashmiri Hindus, absolutely harmless people, good people. I saw them being ethnic cleansed just because they were from a different religion. And this really opened my eyes. And they fled without firing a shot. They fled like sheep. They say you slaughter sheep and the sheep accept to be slaughtered. So they were like that. So this not only opened my eyes, but touched me. And I decided that I would do something for the Kashmiri Pandits, because all the journalists then, whether they were Westerners, Mark Tully was he was kind of the leader of all the journalists. He was the BBC. In those days, the BBC radio, there was not much TV yet. The BBC radio was like king. Whatever the BBC said is like. In fact, in Kashmir, whenever I went, people thought I was BBC. They said, "Oh, you BBC, you BBC." So Mark Tully was he was the king of the journalists, both Western and Indians. And so most of the journalists said, it is not true. Pakistan doesn't train and arm Indian Kashmiri Muslims and then send them back to India with money and weapons to create havoc. I said it makes sense. It makes sense. They've lost Bangladesh and they accuse India. They hold India responsible for the loss of Bangladesh, and they got back partly with Khalistan in the 80s, and now they're getting back with Kashmir. It made sense that all these people were trained, armed, and monetized in Pakistan. But I was the only voice. So anyway, this opened my eyes, and I started studying Indian history. I did an exhibition on the Kashmiri Pandits, on the ethnic cleansing of the Kashmiri Hindus, which I opened in Habitat Center in Delhi with Sri Ravi Shankar and Mr. L.K. Advani. And then I started doing more exhibition on Aurangzeb, etc., etc. And ultimately, we'll speak about it later. I started writing books on Indian history and started a museum. So that is my story. I mean, from a Hindu point of view, it is, of course, it is destiny. Mentally, I know that I may have been born many, many times in India. And when I came to India, I recognized it. I felt that this soil, people call it Mother India, but it is truly feminine, the earth of India. I felt that this was home. But of course, this is mental because I don't have the direct experience to remember my past life. But so you can call it either fate or accident.
That is such a sweet way of putting across your experiences, and it is such a wonderful experience listening to everything that you have gone through and your journey. And I'm curious to know how you have actually studied a lot about Indian history, and that is how you actually, it was like a fact finding mission perhaps, and you founded FACT, which is the foundation for advancement of cultural ties. So what
Right.
exactly did you feel was the need for such a rewriting of history, or this museum, the concept of the museum? What exactly caused all of that?
So as I said, Kashmir, and I'm no historian also. I became a journalist by accident, as I told you, and a historian by accident after Kashmir. Although I started writing many articles first. Then there was Ayodhya, and I wrote a lot about Ayodhya and the Hindus, and I was in touch with the first BJP leaders, Murli Manohar Joshi and Mr. Advani, which I admired. Also Mr. Vajpayee, but less. I was very much in touch with Mr. Advani and Murli Manohar Joshi. I've stayed in touch with them. So I wrote a lot in those days in the Indian Express, in the Hindustan Times, and in a newspaper in Bombay called Blitz, which was run by a gentleman called Mr. Karanjaya, who was a Parsi. So one day, someone wrote to me. His name was Sitaram Goel. He was one of the pioneers of defending Hindus when it was not fashionable. He had read my articles and he asked me whether he had a publishing house called Voice of India, and so he asked me whether he could publish a number of my articles under book form. And I said I would rather write a book from scratch. So I did, and that's when I started really studying Indian history. I wrote a book called The Wonder That Is India. That was my first book, an history book, which was about a little bit of a counter tool against a book called The Wonder That Was India, which is a classic by an Australian guy called Mr. Basham, who says, yeah, India was great, but today it's finished. More or less, that's what he says, in a scientific and literary manner. So I said, no, The Wonder That Is India Today. So this is my first book. And of course, as I told you, I did exhibition on Aurangzeb. So Aurangzeb is a very interesting person because he's central to a lot of Indian history. And of course, he's defended today very ardently, not only by Pakistanis or not only by some of the Indian Muslims, but also by many Western ideologies who say that he's unjustly accused of being a monster. But actually, if you study, and Aurangzeb was a very meticulous emperor. So I employed a professor, because as I said, I'm no historian. I employed a retired head of the Department of History of the Rajasthan University, Professor Bhatnagar, We discovered that Aurangzeb, whenever he passed an order, had them written down in Farsi, and the emperor seal was put on it. So, and they're all preserved. They're all there today. He was a very meticulous emperor who lived very old. He was till he was 80, which was very old for those days, and very ruthless but very meticulous. So everything that Aurangzeb did, whether it's the destruction of a Somnath temple, whether it is the killing of Hindus or the raising of the Krishna Mathura temple, is there. The only thing that Mrs. Trushke, and not only Mrs. Trushke, but Romila Tapar and Irfan Habib don't care to go and see that, because otherwise they will be contradicted. Because Aurangzeb wrote down everything. It is there preserved in the Bikaner archives and in the Hyderabad archives. So my professor got hold of them. I used my political connection at that time. Mrs. Rajesh Scindia was the chief minister of Rajasthan, so she gave us access to the Bikaner archive. We got many of the firmans, and then we hired a team of painters in Jaipur who would do it. Who were good in the old miniature style. So every order of Aurangzeb that we had chosen, we reproduced the scene by painting exactly the scene. For instance, the raising of the Krishna Mathura mosque, we put the firman with the Hindi and English translation and a painting that shows how it was destroyed. So this was a very powerful exhibition. It still is today a very powerful exhibition. Of course, I ran into trouble. We opened it in Delhi in the same Habitat Center, which is a very prestigious central place. Again, Mr. Sri Ravi Shankar always supported our effort, and Mr. Advani came and Karan Singh came. And but people, Hindus came and said, why do you want to rake up the past? This is the past, let it be, let it lie. So I feel, no nation can move forward unless it looks at its own history, and Indians refuse to look at their own history. The greatest Holocaust, even what the British did to India, the famine between 1800 and 1900, where 25 million people, Indians died, and that time it was nearly 10% of India died of famine, up to 43, I think. These are very important facts which have been hidden. So, again, I wrote more history books. Again, I made more exhibitions. And finally, I had so many exhibitions that Sri gave me 5 acres of land near the Pune airport. In those days, it was a little far from Pune. It was very rocky. There was no water. But we planted trees and we got water. And slowly, as donation came, it's a donation museum. The entrance is free. As donations came, I started making one small pavilion, putting an exhibition, and today we have 20 pavilions. We have a shrine, we have a library, we have we have a pandit also. So it's probably the only museum of Indian history in the world. What's the name?
Yes, very true. Because you have gone through such efforts, and I salute you for all the efforts that you have taken to put forward the actual history, the facts, like the foundation that you have rightly named as fact. And another thing that struck me was when you were actually talking about this interview, this conversation, you actually wrote that there is an absolute need to rewrite the history, the Indian history. So, what exactly do you mean when you say that absolute need? The way you have emphasized on it. So, this is something that a lot of people, they have been criticizing, saying that we are trying to say maybe whitewash, or we are trying to maybe wash away the history of the Mughals, who most people think that they were not really as bad, and that they were simply invaders like a lot of other people. So, what is your take on it? I mean, why do you feel this need to rewrite Indian history?
See, I'm a Frenchman. I'm brought up from the kindergarten, in the pride of being French. We are taught our poets, our warriors, Napoleon, of course, but also earlier warriors like Charlemagne. We taught the great writers. But we also taught the dark history of the French. In the Second World War, the French gave away the French Jews who were there for 6-7 generations, a bit like the Kashmiri Pandits. And so France is looking at it because it's a dark side of their history collaboration with the Nazis. I remember my grandmother who was saying, "Oh, the Nazis were not so bad." So the French collaborated with that, and they're looking at it in Algeria also, the colonization. So they're looking at it. But I'm brought up in the pride of being French. Now in India, Indians yesterday, since 1947, today even worse, they're not brought up to be proud of being Indians because they're not taught about Shivaji Maharaj. Shivaji Maharaj is on par with Napoleon. I named that museum after him because he was a guy who was a few hundred people against the most powerful army in the world, with only his wit, his courage, and intelligence, actually defeated the Mughal Empire. Because of Shivaji Maharaj, the Mughal Empire started to crumble after Aurangzeb. So Shivaji Maharaj, in terms of even secularism, is on par with Napoleon. And he should be taught in every school in the South, in the North. But in the South, when I brought my exhibition to the South to be printed, they didn't know Shivaji Maharaj. Maharana Pratap was the only Rajput who fought the Mughals, because all the other Maharajas gave their daughters in marriage to Akbar and to the others, or gave them money. Only Maharana Pratap fought the Mughals, and he actually held Akbar in Aldigati, and you could say that he defeated Akbar. Nobody knows him outside Rajasthan and Delhi and the North. Of course, people know Rani of Jhansi, but there are so many great Indian women warriors, extraordinary women warriors, from Tarabai to Rani Kittu Chennamma in the South. So many of them. I mean, I can do exhibition after exhibition. So Kalidasa, who was put on par, people said, he's on par with Homer, he's on par with Shakespeare. His poetry is so high that probably unsurpassed. He's not taught in schools, not taught in university. Sri Aurobindo, the greatest philosopher of the 20th and 19th century, I don't think any philosophy in the world has gone so high and so deep. He's not taught. He's described as an extremist in history books. So unless you write history books, rewrite them, you will continue to produce clones, only good for export. Go to Harvard, go to there, and then spit on India. So it's a must. It's a must. And I'm sorry to say, because I'm a defender of the BJP, as I said, I've known the first leader of the BJP. I had hoped that they would come to power. But nothing has been done in 7 years. I mean, fringe, a little bit homeopathic dose here and there, but you have to face the music. We know that if you rewrite Indian history and you say Shivaji Maharaj on par with Napoleon, Maharana Pratap before the Mughal, there'll be an outcry among the Christians and the Muslims and maybe even the Sikhs. But unless you're ready to face the music, how will you change things? I have faced the music with that museum. I have had threats. I'm a white man after all. I got threats from Christians. I got threats from Muslims. I got threats even from Dalits who oppose anything about the Brahmins and the Vedas. But I faced it. But this government, I mean, Hindus in general, forget about GP, Hindus in general are not ready to face the enemy. They forgot about the Bhagavad Gita, that when your country is in danger, when your women are in danger, when your culture is in danger, when your spirit is in danger, you face it. Even if it means war. But Hindus are forgotten completely, including the BJP. I must say, I know that great things have been done, among them, removing of Article 370, demonetization, which I supported. But as far as Indian history is concerned, you continue to produce, students who are not proud to be Indians, and as a result, they go elsewhere because they have no roots in the country. They don't know Sri Aurobindo, Kalidasa, Maharana Pratap, Rani Kittu Chennamma. They don't know about them, so they're not proud to be Indians. See, in America, country of the diversity with Chinese, Mexican, they're all proud to be Americans. And so, how do you do this with education? Unless the government of India has the courage to change education and to teach history as it happened, not as Mr. Nehru or Mr. Mortimer Wheeler wanted it to happen, to be taught, but as it happened. We're not saying it. And truth, we're saying, when I found Aurangzeb's firmans, they're there. Nobody can deny. People say, oh, why do you do that? And don't rake up the past. But they cannot deny that this is truth. Because Indian history is there. There are many records and many things are there, but nobody wants to look at it. Mr. Nehru swept it under the carpet. And today, every government sweeps it under the carpet. Oh no, we don't want to regard the past. But you just produce clones good for export. And the Hindus who have at heart to defend Hinduness, let's call it Hinduness, they're 1%, 2%, who have the heart to do something. All the others are so selfish. They just want to send their children to the US. I know so many RSS people and BJP people who you ask them, all their children are gone to the US. So it's a brain drain. The greatest brain drain in the world is that of Hindus. The greatest brain drain in the world. It's still going on. It's still going
Very
on.
true. Very true. What you're saying is absolutely right. But I would say that there is a little spark of hope because now, especially during this Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav, we have seen that they are picking up stories of all these people who actually contributed to the freedom struggle and unsung heroes from each and every part of India. So at least the children will be aware. Everybody, not just the children, all of us will be a little more aware of the true history. And I hope that will be a good start. But then, like you said, it has to reach its way into the textbooks also so that all the children are able to study it.
Only the government can do it. Only Mr. Modi can do it. If Mr. Modi goes, I don't know if it'll happen. Mr. Modi is like an instrument that has been chosen. Everybody, fate gives a chance. So Mr. Modi has been chosen. Only he can do it. He has the will, he has the power, he has the toughness, he has the Hinduness in him. So only he can do it. But I see time passing, and I'm getting a little worried because only the government can do it. I know it's happening on social media. There's the Hindu awakening that was not there many years ago. Very fresh.
Yes.
So, but in the mainstream media, I'm sorry to say there is no change. In the books, there is no change. I see the same books being sold in the airport, Holy Cow and all these books. They were sold 40 years ago and they're still sold today. So only the government can do it, and the government means Mr. Modi. Only he can do it. So he should not misuse that chance that he has to change Indian history and to change not only Indian history as it is taught in books and curriculum, but Indian history for the future.
Yes, very true. And even about another thing that I would actually want to speak about would be about Ayurveda, which is again finding a little prominence, which is finding a little mention, at least in the Ayush ministry, because earlier Ayurveda was definitely being looked down upon, and even in that in this that dismantling global Hindutva, one of their aims and objectives is to trash Ayurveda. And you are one of the people who has actually written a book about Ayurveda. So you are somebody who actually believes in the values of Ayurveda, and which I think, if we put together the values of Ayurveda, the knowledge behind Ayurveda, and maybe add it to a little modern research also, I think India can be a global leader, the Vishwa Guru that we have always been speaking about. So something that you would want to add about Ayurveda?
No, I know Swami Vivekananda, when he went to Chicago to the Parliament of Religion and greeted his brothers and sisters of America, he started the spreading of Indian knowledge. It's not only Ayurveda, it's also meditation. Of course, Hatha Yoga. Out of 3 persons today, at least 2 practice Hatha Yoga. And Ayurveda, of course, which and pranayama. Pranayama, my wife and I are practicing pranayama. It has changed our lives, and also teaching pranayama. So it's a package. The knowledge of the Hindus, which unfortunately was dissociated in the West from the Hindus. Today, Hatha Yoga, nobody knows that it's the Hindus who gave the world. When they do a conference on dismantling Hindutva, then why don't they talk about dismantling Hatha Yoga? Because Hatha Yoga is a tool of the Hindus, as is Ayurveda, as is pranayama, as meditation is. So it's a package. It's a spiritual knowledge which goes into the West. So it is happening, and this is very positive also, that this knowledge is going to the West and helping the West to as tools to live a better life. But unless the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita goes, Ayurveda is good. I am a defender of Ayurveda. I've written a big book by Ayurveda. But what is essential is the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita or Upanishad and the Vedas. About the world, the truth of the world. About why the world, why life. Unless this knowledge goes and is accepted. But at the moment, these Indologists and everybody is attacking this knowledge, not openly, not directly, but it is not this knowledge which is attacked. Ayurveda, is an off branch of this knowledge. It's a shoot of that knowledge. But the core is the knowledge of the self. This is what the West needs to survive, but it is not going out really yet.
Yes. So, is that why you were speaking about adding it into the textbooks also, so that when even when it gets into, say, maybe almost like the DNA of every child of India? And I've always observed that when children learn something, the entire family learns about it because the children excitedly speak about it at home. So this has always been some kind of a subject of taboo. People have never spoken about Hinduism or any of the religious texts in school. Like they have never been taught because those values have always been subdued in the name of secularism. So that is something that has very sadly, Indians have been they have been kept away from all these treasures, I would say, that are there in the books, the religious books. So, is that why you're talking about changing these texts, the
Yes, of course.
textbooks, the curriculum?
Of course. And talking about Ayurveda and pranayama and meditation, they should be taught in schools. I mean, I think in America they're starting to use in the kindergartens. Now they call it I am or present moment. But these tools are starting being used in America. Meditation for children, exercise for children. Why the hell in India they're not there? Why can't the government? I know again there'll be an outcry. Why can't the government introduce pranayama in a playful manner and meditation and some Ayurvedic knowledge, in dispensaries, in schools? Why not? It is in their power to do it, and it is their duty, it is their dharma to do it. But it's not happening. So, yes, the change has to happen in education. Unless you change education, the big change that India needs will not happen. And the last thing I want to say is that for India to spread that knowledge, India needs to become a superpower. India needs to become the new China for the West. That means that the West starts investing more into India economically and geopolitically. Because geopolitically, there's a big battle going on in the China Sea and the Indian Ocean. The Chinese are trying to control it, and some of the Western nations like United States and Australia know that it is not good, so they're opposed to it. So unless India assumes that role forcefully and wholeheartedly, that we are the bastion of Western democracy here in Asia, and we need to take our role seriously and face the Chinese, it will not happen again, because again you have to come out of your comfort zone and stop that Hindi chini bye thing which has grabbed every government since Mr. Nehru, and face the enemy, enemy within, enemy without. They have to be faced. So India needs to become an economic and military superpower. Then that knowledge can go freely to because the West today has a lot of respect for China. They fear the Chinese. So the Chinese can do anything. Look at that lady who got released, the Huawei lady. They knew that Huawei was using, the Chinese government, communist government was using Huawei, which is a mobile company, internet company, to spy on the West. They knew. So they detained that lady because she was the daughter of the Huawei founder, and they knew that basically she was a spy. But they released her because the Chinese are a very powerful nation. They have a lot of money and a lot of clout. So they took two Canadians and okay, we'll execute them. So they released that lady. She came yesterday night or this morning back to China, the heroine. So India needs to be capable of that, of this toughness, that we stand in the spirit again of the Bhagavad Gita, what Lord Krishna tells Arjuna. Okay.
Yes. So he says युद्ध कर, like even if you may feel that they are our very own people, sometimes you have to stand up against our very own people if they are saying something wrong. Say maybe not to destroy them, but to maybe get them on the right track. And the very first thing that we need to feel is this sense of pride and take ownership of our own country and
Right.
our own treasures that we have
Right.
in the past, and not just in the past. I mean, this is something that we can use every day.
Right.
So,
Thank you so
uh,
much.
there are a few comments here, and if you can see them. So, Mr. Ramchandran is saying the Hinduness, which is akin to Indianness, has to be brought out by the government machinery, irrespective of any criticism.
Correct.
So there are a few notes of appreciation. So Mahesh Joshi says, very excited about this interaction. And my travel blogs is giving a thumbs up. And Jay Mahakal says, very nice discussion. Mukul Roy says, very knowledgeable. And I'm sure there are a lot more people watching this, uh, but maybe they have not commented here really. So, but anyway, this was a lovely discussion, and
Thank you,
I'm
my
really thankful to you. And I just want to end with a little clip about you, which gives a little more information about the kind of books and the kind of work that you have done, apart from the informative clip in the start. So,
thank
and uh, and I hope to have another discussion with you, another interaction with you sometime again, because like today I know that you are short of time, and all good things must come to an end. So for today, we have to stop this here, but with a short clip.
thank
And
you.
I'm sure that all the viewers must have felt really a lot of pride in whatever you were speaking about, because you have actually lived a whole lot of experiences that a lot of Bharatiyas themselves, Indians themselves, might never have thought about. So when you bring it all out, I'm sure that it reaches a lot more people. uh,
Thank,
so
thank you.
so, yeah, just a small dedication to you, a small clip of appreciation to you.
Sure. Thanks so much. Bye. Thank you so much.
So, thank you so much once again. And I'm sure the clips of you performing yagya and the clips of your museum, all our viewers will definitely be tempted to visit the museum and have a first look. So they should definitely visit. I'm sure everyone must visit and see what is there in store for everybody. So any words that you may want to add about the museum?
Yeah, there's a website called factmuseum.com, fact, F-A-C-T, museum in one word.com. And there's a Google map on the museum there. So people, it's about 12 minutes from the Pune airport. And, this museum is worthless unless people visit it. And as I said, the entrance is free. So please do visit that museum. If you wish to support it, you can send me a mail. I'm sure you can give my mail also. And then I will see you there. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for such a lovely interaction and such lovely insights. And I'm sure that after all of this, all our viewers will all say, Jai Ho Bharat.
Jai Ho.
Jai Ho. Thank you so much.